Disney is firing or set to fire around 7,000 employees across some different divisions at the Walt Disney Company. I noticed that you had a larger vlogger who does mostly Disney World content, and this person was covering the story, and they made a comment that like, oh, this won't affect people who need the jobs the most, such as frontline cast members. And even though these people who are being fired are not necessarily the people that are the front, ticket gate people, the people who check you in at the park, it doesn't mean that these people still don't need the job. These 7,000 people that are working for Disney World across these different divisions that are going to be fired, these are real people with real jobs, real incomes, people who still need these jobs and have bills to pay. So it kind of baffles me how this larger vlogger was able to make a comment that it won't affect people who need it most because it's going to be management positions. It's like, so let's say you're the equivalent of a lower level manager or something on that level. That means you don't pay bills. That means you don't need your job to pay your bills. That means you're super rich. Except for a few vloggers that are kind of justifying it and normalizing it in some weird way. You have the majority of Disney vloggers that have actually remaining silent and mute and are not saying anything because they want those handouts from the Walt Disney World Company, which is just, again, very, very baffling that they're remaining silent, because they would rather have that free resort stay or that free lanyard to go eat food at wherever than to talk about the fact that these are real people being affected by the fact that they are losing their incomes, losing their jobs, and it's just not cool. And I'm sure the execs are not taking any pay cuts, and they will still be able to afford their couple $1,000 outfits that they're wearing. I always find it interesting how, people, one of the main things people would say about wanting Bob Iger instead of Bob Chapek, they were like, they and it's not just like me talking, like they had made comments like they liked the way he looked. It's like, yes, that's what probably a $5,000 outfit looks like. He's got very nice cashmere cardigans and outfits that he wears. And yes, that's what a couple $1,000 outfit looks like while you're wearing your overpriced Spirit jersey that costs them probably 10 cents to make. In reality, you were never really taught. People who were like, oh, I want Iger back so bad, it's like they would talk a little bit about some of his policies or the things that they thought would happen across the company. But in reality, one of the main things that I would always hear would be comments actually about the way he looked and his cardigans and his clothing. And it was just always very, very strange to me. It was like the women thought he was like, I guess, like kind of like this George Clooney type, this older guy with a lot of money in this executive role. And, I think the guys fantasized too, and they were like, I want to be George Clooney of Disney World. And in reality, that's what you're like drooling over. You're drooling over a guy in his fancy cardigan. And, yeah, it just baffles me, because these 7,000 people that are being fired across the Disney World Company, the fact that some of these larger vloggers could make comments, oh, it doesn't matter because they're management and they don't need their jobs. It's like, what are you talking about? Just because someone has worked their way up and has some type of lower level management job or even a higher level management job doesn't mean that they don't have bills to pay. It doesn't mean that they don't depend on their job to support their families and their lifestyle. And the other thing this larger vlogger made a comment saying, almost like saying like that's what you get for getting yourself involved with the union and trying to pressure Disney into paying the cast members a higher salary. Again, I always find it so bizarre how these Disney bloggers who will make these extremely supportive comments of the Disney World Company as if they own it. Many of them don't even have jobs across the Walt Disney World Company, and even if they did, it's like, you do know you don't like actually own the company, right? Because the way you talk about it, it's just very, 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 very strange to me. There's a cast member that currently works for the Disney World Company that I'm familiar with through watching Disney content, because I do watch Disney content myself, and this person had a higher up, lower level management role for Disney World in the theme park. And the Way of the World a couple years ago, this person's role was removed or fired or whatever. And when they came back to work for the company, they were put into a much, much, much lower level position, way, way, way beneath them. And they will constantly make comments on their, throughout social media, bashing anyone who criticizes the company in any way, even on like a joke level. It's like, again, you do know that number one, they have affected your own income and your ability to make a living, your job, your status. And again, you don't own the company. It's just always so strange to me how they will like go to this huge effort to support the company. And how dare you say that about Mickey? Mickey does not appreciate that. And it's just very, very, very strange. I also can't help but wonder if a lot of the things that are happening at the Walt Disney World Company with the 7,000 or so firings, yes, it has somewhat to do with, that they've lost a lot of money throughout their films and everything else over the years, and they're trying to make up for the money. But again, you have a lot of stuff politically happening with Reedy Creek, and I can't help but wonder if a lot of it almost seems like some weird, creepy response on Disney's part. Like, you didn't watch our movies, you didn't like our rhetoric, you didn't like our beliefs, so now, and you're hurting us with Reedy Creek, so now we're going to fire 7,000 employees. And it kind of feels a little weird. It feels like it's almost like their response to you not playing along with everything that they're interested in and supporting them on any initiative that they take. Again, a lot of these vloggers will not, these larger Disney vloggers, will not criticize Disney either at all or to any extent of what is publicly happening. I noticed also one of these larger Disney vloggers, they were covering the story about how the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, I believe it was at Disneyland, had technical difficulties, and of course, just like some of these rides like Splash Mountain, it was like filling with water and everything, and the people were like really inconvenienced. They literally had to like walk the plank and like walk over something. It seemed incredibly dangerous if you were, if you were dizzy, if you were this or that. I mean, you could fall and get really, really hurt. It was actually a very serious evacuation of a ride, and that the Disney company gave them like a free fast pass, the equivalent of that, as for their trouble. And this Disney vlogger, this larger Disney vlogger, basically said, you're all complaining, it wasn't a big deal. Again, in this weird over-the-top obsession with like, I don't know, just not willing to speak up when things don't match up. And then again, the majority of Disney vloggers are not saying anything. You haven't had any of your larger Disney vloggers make any comments about how 7,000 employees are being fired because they are too busy getting their free, handouts from Disney, where they will say, thank you for sponsoring me, thank you for your hotel stay and all that stuff. I find it interesting how the 7,000 employee firing comes after what seems like now the Reedy Creek thing and everything that's, how Disney is losing their control over Reedy Creek. And quite frankly, they never should have had control over that. It's very, very strange. The things that they were potentially able to do, like build like nuclear plants and airports and all this stuff, was seize property and land even like outside of like the bubble. It's like, why was this okay? And then a lot of your like Disney like obsessive people will say things like, oh, they would never do that. It's like, we don't know that. We don't know that, actually. The fact that they could was a problem. And that contributed to their Disney mode. That contributed to what I call Disney mode. Whenever you had an incident there, they thought they were their own government because like they were acting like they were. They were acting like their own de facto government. And that was something with Reedy Creek that needed to go bye-bye. I wouldn't, Splash Mountain has closed and they've done all these things. You can no longer say welcome like boys and girls because that insults people. I would not be surprised. I think there's been rumors that even maybe like It's a Small World will eventually close down, or the theming will change because we can't acknowledge other cultures or anything like that, because that's not okay. What they did recently with the Proud Family show, I grew up watching that show. That's special, what they did there. It's not cute what Disney is doing. It's extremely sad because Disney was something that I grew up on, and I was actually like, it was a very, very, very big part of my life growing up. I would go there multiple times a year as I lived in Miami, and I always had yearly passes, and I was going up to Disney, 5 times a year and staying, for a week at a time. And it's very, very heartbreaking to know that the company has changed so much. Disney doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what it is right now. And quite frankly, I don't think, you're being kind of like the saying, like the pot in the water. They're doing things little by little, and I think they're doing things like heavier now. And quite frankly, in 5 years from now, I don't think you'll even recognize the company. It'll be people will look back at what Disney used to be, and they'll be like, really? It was like that? That's so strange. That's not like with the times. That's not trendy. It's bizarre, and your average employee today, your average vlogger will not criticize the company in any way. They're too interested in having their free their free handout or whatever Disney's going to give them. It's interesting also how Disney has the money though to expand different projects in Disneyland or Avatar, and again, they don't now. It almost seems like they don't want to expand at the Animal Kingdom. I think they were once thinking of doing that. Can't help but think, again, that's a response to the Reedy Creek stuff. In my videos actually is from employees at Disney or Universal, especially if I criticize something at Universal or at Disney, and you'll be like, oh, how do I know they're employees? Because they will actually tell me that in the comments. They'll be like, I am an employee for Disney or Universal, and I do not agree with this. And it's like, again, you're being paid minimum wage. You're being paid minimum wage, and you're acting like you own the company, which is very, very strange. Yeah, just I don't know. I think it's very, very sad that they're firing 7,000 employees, and it's really just, it just shows the fakeness of a lot of your larger vloggers who do enjoy doing theme park content or consuming it, that they won't even mention it to you. They're too interested in eating 20,000 calories in beignets right now. That I think you're gonna actually end up seeing more drastic changes under Bob Iger than you would have with Bob Chapek. And the majority, again, of people fell into this thing of they liked the way Bob Iger looks physically. The women think he's handsome. They think he's a George Clooney type in his $5,000 outfits, which is what I'm just guessing his clothes cost. Yes, that's what clothes like that looks like. And you didn't like what Bob Chapek looked like. That's the truth. And the men, again, think they want to be him. A wealthy, a good-looking older guy with a lot of money. That's what they see when they look at him. And no offense to a lot of your mainstream larger Disney vloggers, but they give off the vibes like they live in their mother's basements and they call up to their mother, make me chicken nuggets. Okay, that's the vibe they're giving off. Okay, so yeah, those are my thoughts. I wish more people would talk about how sad it is that people are losing all their their jobs. It is a very big deal. It is not how some of your larger Disney vloggers have said, oh, it doesn't matter, they don't need the job. It's like, yes, they need their jobs, and it's not cool, it's not cute. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Disney at the moment, but I am going to Universal Studios in just a couple of weeks, so I hope you guys stay tuned for those vlogs, and I will see you soon in my next video, and bye.